Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rich, Simple, Human. Today, I have the ultimate pleasure of sitting down with Ian Dibb. And before I introduce him, I'm going to remind you all that there's a newsletter to accompany every episode. So if you haven't subscribed, please go to the website lindseyfrances.co.uk. Make sure you've subscribed to that newsletter because you wouldn't want to miss anything that Ian and I are about to talk about. Ian, you and I are having a chat today and it's January, so we're really upping the ante in terms of our expectations for this year and what might happen in our lives. Ian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Ian, you and I have connected over faith-driven entrepreneurs, and faith is so important to both of us as entrepreneurs and in our work. We're going to talk about that more, but let me just introduce you to my wonderful audience as the chief exec and founder of Wayfind Advisory and startup coach and mentor. What a great intro. Anything you'd like to add to that, Ian, to even create an even more sense of...
Yeah, so also I'm the founder of the Cornish Diamond Company, which is something that I really hope to put the magic back into engagement.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. I'm afraid it was a very long time ago since I got engaged, so I can't remember whether it's magical or not. But for anybody contemplating an engagement this year, please head over to the Cornish Diamond Company and we will put the links in the show notes beneath that. Ian, I'm particularly interested to talk to you at the beginning of this conversation about your experience as a founder, because you founded 3 companies across 3 very different spaces. I wonder if you might tell us about that and talk to us about the common thread you found in the challenge in being a founder 3 times.
Yeah, so each of the companies I founded were very close to my heart. I felt a pain or a gap or a need for all of them. So the first company I founded was called Kilu, which was a life planning platform. So I lost my sister when she was 28. Sadly, she took her own life. And 2 years after that, my mother passed away from cancer. And it took me about 6 months to 12 months to deal with the estate, the probate, the finding the documents. So I created a life planning platform for people to go and find all of this important documentation to make that process easier. Now, I'm a dad, I'm married. So I should be wanting to get my affairs in order to make it easy. But there's one thing saying I'm going to do it, but actually doing life admin is a bit of a chore. So we sadly had to close that company in March this year, which was hard. You know, it was my baby. I built it. And from the outside, I certainly didn't want to feel like a failure. You know, everything I've done for the last 6 years had been in this business. But we closed that down in April 2025. The following month, I launched Wayfind Advisory. And it was just incredible that I'd taken all of the learnings from the past 6 years and it just felt easy. So with Kilu, it felt like I was walking through toffee every day, you know, wearing slippers. It was really challenging. But with Wayfind, it just felt really easy. You know, I was doing what I loved doing, which was coaching early stage founders, working with mentors, but actually helping them avoid the pain points I've been through for the past 6 years. And then the last one was with the Cornish Diamond Company, was looking at engagements and going, most couples now choose a ring together because the guys don't want to get it wrong. So we want to try and put the magic back into those relationships by actually making it really easy for the guy to buy an engagement ring. So he works with us and then actually he comes to us with his fiance in the future and they choose a ring together after the engagement. So it's just, for me, all my businesses have been something I go, there's a real problem here that needs solving. And the problem isn't solve it, make more money. It's solve the problem, make people's lives better.
I love the way that you've described your passion and your purpose, Ian, because I think there will be founders listening who have found themselves in a business that they're perhaps not feeling passionate about. And as you and I were talking before we started recording, this is one of the biggest things that creates burnout. The passion, the fire inside of us goes out. And then we've got no motivation anymore and we can't really work out what's going on. And you've just described the process where you were passionate and that's ignited that excitement. Ian, can I just ask you about something I see founders struggle with all the time, fear of failure and actually knowing when to stop or close or exit a business. Could you just talk to that for a moment about the way you felt and how you advise others?
Yeah, I think you become a founder because you see a problem and you want to solve it. And then all of a sudden, especially for those people who raise investment, they go from being a founder to actually being accountable, not only to the company and their staff, but also the investors. It's a complete mindset. And founders believe the harder they work, the more they do, the more the chance of success will happen. And as a direct result of that, they work all the hours, they work weekends, they don't stop, they don't eat, and it's a slippery slope. to burnout. And I see it in founders all of the time, Lindsay, where I just work one more hour. I'll just work the weekend, and for me, actually, one of the things I coach a lot of my founders on is stopping, just stopping and going, okay, there isn't such thing as failure. They're all just different lessons we'll take. And we'll think of, if we push hard, we'll be successful. But actually, some things, they might be the best idea in the world, but they just might not work. Now, that doesn't mean you're a failure. That means you were brave enough to give it a go. To leave a paid job and to start your own company is so brave. And I respect everyone that does it. But if you see every single day as a lesson, there's a view, sorry, a quote I love, which is a view from the summit is great, but the fruit grows in the valleys. During the tough times when we're in the valleys, that's when we're learning most. And for me, everything I learned with my first business, actually I've taken into the second two businesses, and it feels far easier now. Now, if I'd have looked at my first business closing as a failure, I'd be feeling terrible now. But what I've looked at it is actually we grow through everything we do. And I think for founders, if you do feel stressed and you start to feel burnout, to get yourself a mentor or a coach who's been where you are is just vital, because they'll tell you it's okay to feel this way. For me, it's the guilt of closing Kilu probably kept it open 12 months longer than I should have done.
I really, first of all, admire your bravery, and I really appreciate you speaking out about this, because I'm seeing this constantly in that founder space. And I've also done a number of angel investment deals, and I see that become a really difficult psychological game where you're putting money in with of course with expectations, but we gear our expectations around financial return. And of course, that's not really the game here. It's about purpose, personal growth, self-awareness, and making a difference. And there's not always a financial bottom line that's relevant there. And I just really hope that people listening to the show will listen to the end and come away thinking there's some things I can do actually that feel much more rewarding than just knowing that financially that's where all my focus has been.
I think that's key. I spoke to an investor last week, an angel investor, and he's a good friend of mine now. And he said, Ian, I invest not to make money, but to be part of the journey and see their growth. And it was really refreshing to hear that, Lindsay, that yes, we want to make a return on investment. If let's say you put 10,000 into a business, you don't want to simply see that thrown away. But actually, 9 out of 10 startups don't make the first 3 years. But actually, what is it you can do to help that founder through those early processes, removing that stress and helping them grow? I think that's really where the reward should be.
I don't think this is talked about enough, Ian. I spend a lot of time listening to Raising Finance for Women and this real focus on encouraging female entrepreneurship, etc. But the other side of that, being an angel and being part of the journey, is so under promoted, because the lot size is not always huge, but for women and men, it's about being part of something bigger than ourselves. And this is, I think, where yours and my faith sort of comes into it. I want to be part of something bigger than me, and that's not about the money. And being an investor can really fulfill a lot of those boxes. Yeah,
for sure. It's refreshing to hear it. When you're an early stage founder and you're speaking to angels, it's terrifying that a lot of these guys that I coach have no idea what it's like to pitch and stand up on stage. And there's some incredible investors out there, but equally on the other hand, there's some people that really can make your life challenging. And to have a network of faith-driven investors is incredible, because yes, the money we make is fantastic, but actually the difference on the kingdom is where the magic is.
It's absolutely crucial. And again, I think you and I have certainly found that that's been part of our journey to avoiding burnout or alleviating burnout, is remembering, okay, what do we think we were created to do here on earth? And what is that, as you say on your website, North Star of orientation? Yeah. Ian, can I ask you about the Tom Peters quote? And it's obviously on your website. I love this quote, and I think we forget it on a daily basis as leaders, especially when we're talking about chief execs, the C-suites that I coach, and certainly the people that you come across. The quote from Tom Peters: true leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. Why is that such a challenging statement to some people?
I guess so. I teach youth at church, and for me, that we've all got a lifespan. That if we want to be the person everyone looks to and goes, Ian has all the answers and he's amazing, and I'm not there, then everything falls flat. So what my job is to do is to lift everyone up to my standard. But lots of people fear the fact that if they raise everyone to their standard, then all of a sudden they're not the important one. For me, it's about having lots of people that can stand on stage and talk to people, raise people, support people, help people to grow, rather than going, look at me, I'm an incredible leader. And that's something I've never had. With all the businesses I worked in, we have a no ego policy. Our job is to make other people as great as they can be, not be the one who is looking over there and go, oh, he's here, brilliant, we're safe. That's not the case. If I'm not lifting people up and saying, no, Lindsey, you are fantastic, you're exactly where you should be. Get up on stage, give it a go, have some fun. For me, this is about, having lots of incredible people out there, not having me as the one where I have to be on stage, I have to be the focus. But there are lots of people out there that don't want to be superseded. And for me, that's not an issue. I feel nothing but pride when I see somebody I've worked with stand on stage and take the limelight. And I can just sit back from the sides and just champion them.
Yeah, so, it's ego that gets in the way, I think, isn't it? And we feel the fear. This is why I always coach with heart rate variability and the biometric data. Is your body in fight or flight? Are you in a relaxed nervous system state where you're not feeling threatened at work? Or are you at work thinking, I better prove myself? Even if you're the chief exec, have you got that imposter syndrome hiding out in your subconscious? Or can you truly be who you were made to be? And if you can't, I think you should be having a conversation with Ian, all right? Fairly quickly. Links will be in the show notes down below.
It is imposter syndrome. And it was one of the things that affected me from a very early age when I first raised the funding for Kilo, that I had this money and all of a sudden I was accountable. And when you realize that everyone is making it up as they go along, and to enjoy the ride is the most important thing. And so I've spoken to some incredible people, and these are leaders of big top companies. When you find one who's truly honest with you, they say they feel exactly the same way. And it's just, I think there isn't enough on LinkedIn about people who go, I'm having a tough time, or business isn't doing what I hoped it was. There's all of these companies going, things are absolutely incredible, everything's going well. And actually, when you get a one-on-one with these guys, they go, Ian, I'm really struggling. I just wish there was more honesty.
It's a very strange space we're in now because, of course, we're not seeing, you and I are having human conversations, we could say anything, but because we're having these weird sort of social media type filtered conversations, we're not seeing the sort of conversations that we'd have over the water machine or over the coffee machine. And I think people are just becoming so isolated and the conversations are not raw. They are filtered. And then we obviously have this perception that is not reality. It's a tough world, whether you're running a business, funding a business, investing in a business, running a home, trying to keep a roof over your head, whatever stage you're at. I've just done a trip to Africa. Life is challenging, and that's okay. But how do we make it better? Well, we remember what our purpose and our calling and our unique gifts and talents are, and then we try and bring those to the world. And I think you're very much in that same space as I am. Ian, can I ask you about sort of personal loss and challenge? And we were laughing before we started the call about the words in a song I heard this morning, and it's Counting Stars by One Republic. Everything that kills me makes me feel alive. The human condition is anything that brings us closer towards the thought or the feeling of death does ignite a feeling of being alive in us. And because you've suffered personal loss, as you said, I wanted to ask how that's changed your approach and influenced the way that you work.
Yeah, for me, that I always used to think that I've got some kind of number. 93 is the age I think I'm going to die. I always known it. I don't know why, just quite confident. And that's given me a sense of peace in many ways. But actually, at the same point, I've lost some incredible people over the last few years. Some really close Christian friends. One of them passed away from cancer last year, aged 44. We've only got today. We really do only have today. Yesterday's gone. Now, if you're carrying the burdens of yesterday into today, it will affect today. So every day I wake up and I feel I'm blessed. In the UK, I think there's 1,500 people each day who pass away. Now, they'd planned for the following day. We all do this. But I just love what I do. I really do love what I do. And I just want to use those experiences, whether they're good or bad, to actually change the way the future looks. And losing my sister at 28 and losing my mum 2 years later when she was only 57, that's put my sisters into a kind of spin of depression. They can't get out of it. But it gave me a calling. And before that point, I was just bobbing along in life and that was okay. But actually, I now want, my mission is not just to be me. I want to see how many people I can help be the best versions of themselves. And death, yes, is the final curtain. But between that, there's some really exciting opportunities you can take if you're just brave enough to do it. There's the book, the Boy, the Mole, the Horse, which I absolutely love. And there's a saying where he's scared and he goes, well, can you see the next step? And if you can see that next step, the way forward is possible to take. And So I've lived my life pretty much that way, that I want to be somebody who instills confidence for my founders to take those next steps. And yeah, tomorrow is not promised to anyone, Lindsay, but I don't want to be lying on my deathbed going, I wish I'd done that. I'm much more, God, I can't believe I did that. There's been stuff I did. I'm amazed I'm still alive after some of the stuff I'm done. But for me, that life is short. It's not, we aren't promised a long, healthy life. So we've just got to do everything we can today. And at the end of it, do we leave the world a better place than we came into it? And that's something I've instilled in my daughter. That if you leave this place better than when you came into it, you've had a positive effect on people's lives and you've been a good person. That's all I can wish for as a dad.
Yeah, I think you're referring to that sort of legacy concept that in the sort of commercial world, people are so concerned, especially if they're sort of in a family office environment, this legacy I'm leaving behind, my foundation, my lasting impact on the world. And I think we need to treat those conversations with respect, because we do actually want to leave something valuable behind, because that makes us feel purposeful. The question is, what is it you want to leave behind? Is it going to be an obsession, like I must leave as much money behind in whatever tax-free, or am I actually leaving some sort of feeling behind? And of course, our legacy, as Maya Angelou said, is the lives of every single person we touch. So we're doing that anyway. But I love those discussions. The legacy you leave behind, Ian. So this is where the sophrology future visualization is so powerful. What would you like to leave behind? Would you be able to tell me?
Yeah, I remember when my sister passed away. So she was 28, she was a teacher, and she always put herself into really uncomfortable situations. Like, she didn't teach at the best schools, she taught at the worst schools because she wanted to make a difference. Now, when we had a funeral service, it was one of the biggest churches in our town. And not only was the church full, but outside the church, you couldn't get anywhere near it. And for me, I'd like to have the same thing at a church. When I pass away, people go, you know what? He helped me. He made a difference. So I don't talk numbers and finance. I want to have, when I've gone through life, there's loads of touch points in my life. Whilst I've had a positive impact on the people around me. Now, that to me is probably one of the most powerful legacies I could leave behind.
I think I agree with you. I just want people to think, yeah, we had some really great conversations. And, sometimes you go places with people and you think, oh, perhaps I shouldn't have said that. Or I'm learning to ask permission. Would it be okay if we discuss this? Or would you like me to share with you? And just trying to have that slightly gentler intro into, are we happy to go into this? But, when you do ask people tricky questions and you ask yourself tricky questions, that's where the growth is. That's where the change happens. Not, I'm just going to work, like you say, the founder mindset. If I work harder, things will get better. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. You cannot control the outcomes. Therefore, adding more control does not improve the outcome.
There's a book I read called The Power of Letting Go. And when you realize that from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, it's about 70 to 80% of decisions are outside of your control. And as an early stage founder, you just want to control everything. You're speaking to a large company and you go, if only this comes in. And then you realize you talk to these large corporates, and from an initial conversation for a deal can be 24 months. So these founders who are pushing really hard to try and get these big deals over the line, and if I do this and I raise this and this person, I speak to this investor, that money will come in and everything will change. And then I'll be happy. Once I've got this, I'll be happy. So actually, by letting go of all of that kind of pressure, you can actually find happiness now. And it's something I work with all my founders on, is if you're seeking happiness at future times, it's challenging because you'll always be seeking for happiness. By actually finding peace where you are now actually makes that whole founder journey far easier.
I think that we can call it a daily gratitude practice. Those are terrible words because nobody actually knows what that means. But I think for me, I often say it's actually just the fact that hot water came out the tap when I got in the shower. How incredible is this? I have my own shower, and I don't have to share that shower with anybody else, which is wonderful. And there's tons of hot water that comes out whenever I want it. And for me, that's been a game changer, especially coming from a place of depression and anxiety and various other things. Just that little thing, water comes out the tap. This is awesome. What privilege.
It's amazing, the fact that you go into the fridge and there's food in there. And you go upstairs and you go, what clothes shall I wear today? These are things where we take it for granted. Now, last week we had some crazy storms in Cornwall and we had no electric. Now, all of a sudden you've got no telly, no Wi-Fi, you can't communicate with people, and you realize actually how much we take for granted.
Yeah, we do. It's crazy. And I think if we talk about evolutionary psychology for a minute, it's one of my favorite topics. we're designed to be hunter-gatherers. Now, that is the idea. To survive, we have to go out and get food and store it away and make sure that we're prepared for winter. But that doesn't apply to Lamborghinis. So if your mindset is, I have to go out and get another Lamborghini, you've missed the point. Dogs were domesticated 10,000 years ago or something, and they still unfortunately have traits of wild animal in them. We are not that domesticated. So we're still out there thinking, I must go and buy another blouse. I just went in my wardrobe and I was like, where are all these blouses coming from? My subconscious hunter-gatherer brain just buys for some reason at the moment. I'm like, we have to stop that by consciousness. You do not need another blouse, which you only have one body. When are you going to wear 10 at a time? I've actually got my gym kit on under my jumper, so I'm not even wearing a blouse. It's complete nonsense. So if you're going out looking for blouses, shopping or Lamborghinis, just remember you have got some overriding to do. Sophrology is the study of consciousness in harmony. Be conscious of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Your life is a great privilege, and what an incredible thing that you and I get to this conversation. We get to record it, we get to share it, and let's hope it inspires people. Ian, can I switch gears a bit and talk about men's mental health specifically? Because this is an area that you're experienced in, you are passionate about, and I see still being a very taboo topic. So I use the Whoop band and I use HRV, and you can see very quickly how anxious somebody is from that, and it allows that gentle conversation. What do you think is happening? What advice do you give to people? And what are your thoughts on trying to share support for this terrible, terrible situation that we're finding ourselves in?
Yeah, it's something I'm seeing everywhere. I wish it was 1 in 10 conversations, but I'm saying it's 7 or 8 out of 10 these days. Finance is a killer. That we have never been so stretched financially. This links into something you said earlier, Lindsey. We want more. We want it now. We've got access to credit instantly. So if you want that new telly, just go and get it now. If you want that new car, go and lease it. If you want a bigger house, fantastic. But actually with that increasing car and increasing house comes increasing worry. Can you pay those bills? And the shopping bills are going up. So I work with the team at Man Down, which is a men's mental health charity. And we offer peer-to-peer support for men who are having a tough time. It's a safe space for them to actually go, phew, there's other people like me. I'm not alone. And I'm going to speak for all men here. We're proud, we don't want to be failures. And especially when I was going for a really tough time with my last business, I didn't want to tell my friends how tough it was because they had successful businesses. And so you keep it to yourself. That with the online gambling, wow, it's easy to lose all your money, really easy to lose your money. And what do we do? Because we were, as you said earlier, we were hunter-gatherers. We used to wake up in the morning, we'd go hunting, we'd come back, we'd sit around with our families in the evening, we'd cook the food, and there was that community. We don't have communities anymore. We now work remotely. So when, as you said earlier, we would be sat around a water fountain talking, you could look at a person's body language and go, there's something wrong with Chris today. It doesn't look right. Say, Chris, you okay? But actually, you don't do that on Zoom. You don't talk to your team members like you would have done before. WhatsApp is a killer as well. I'm in lots of WhatsApp chats with my families, but do I see my family as much as I used to? Absolutely not, because we believe we're talking to them. So we've got these amazing devices which give us access to everyone, but we've never been more disconnected. And as men, we're seen as the leaders of the family. We want to support. We want to show everyone, I've got my daughter and wife. I can financially provide for them. And when you can't, it's really, really devastating. And I'm seeing the numbers of guys going, I just can't cope. And the suicide rate in men aged 40 to 50 is astronomical. And when our lives we just throw away because of it's normally finance, or there's been issues at home, or there's drink problems, or there's drug problems. It's across the board. And when you feel really lost, where is it you turn to for salvation? As a Christian, that I know my purpose is far bigger than any of my businesses. You can take them all away from me tomorrow and I'm still going to be at peace. But a lot of these people don't have that same thing. So for me, I'm just looking at society and going, we're constantly advertising more equals happy. Whereas actually it's not true. It's peace is happiness. And we're not promised an easy ride at all points. But can you remove some of that debt? Can you remove some of those issues and actually be happy? And I think there just needs to be more support, plus the ability for people to talk about this openly and honestly. And that's why we're probably opening up a new Man Down group every couple of weeks across the UK, because there is a real need for men to have a safe space to speak to one another.
Yeah, it's such an amazing initiative. And again, we'll put those links below. But it isn't discussed enough, Ian. And I see people just, looking like they're living the dream. And I'm sort of scratching my head thinking, how are they affording that? And then, of course, I think to myself, well, I must not be as successful. Or maybe I'm lazy, or maybe I'm not working hard enough, as they take, another first-class flight wherever they're going. But these aren't signs of happiness. And we know that money and wealth doesn't equal happiness and fulfillment. So what do we do about that? Again, I think this is where the faith conversation is so important. What have you got faith in apart from yourself? And that it's so helpful. I'm going to reference the work of Dr. Lisa Miller here. I don't know if you've read her book, Ian, but she's a scientist. She's done a lot of brain scans on the power and the impact of faith on the brain. So that part of our brain that's wired to be connected to something greater than ourselves. And we're not talking about religious faith, but we're talking about sort of a spiritual faith of some sort. It's incredible research. I just hope we see that more widely as a solution. Yeah,
I've not read it, but it's going onto my reading list, because I just feel that I only work with purpose-led founders. So these aren't guys who are making widgets for 25% less than the next man. These are people who have a mission and a passion and a vision. And I think if you've got those three things, that it can take you through some of the toughest challenges, that when things get tough, if you've got the willingness to understand that what you're doing makes a difference, it will get you through some really challenging places. But as you said, you have that belief in something bigger than yourself. My faith is hugely important to me. But just as importantly for me, it's actually being and having the opportunity to affect lives, lift others up.
One of the things I absolutely love in my role as a psychologist and a coach is when you see the gold in somebody and you tell them about it, that experience. And people are always a bit sort of surprised when I say, I see this about you. Do you? Yeah, do you not? And I'm always thinking, do you not see that about yourself? Incredibly gifted people, talented in a way I am simply not. I see them go out to the world and, behave in a way I'm like, this is amazing. And then you tell them and they're looking at you like nobody's ever said that to them before. Yet they're running, a Fortune 500 company or whatever it is they're doing. How have we created a world where we're simply not even aware of our gifts?
There's definitely something there. If you give somebody a compliment, they immediately feel they need to give one back. And which is I'm guilty of this. Yeah. If I said, Lindsey, I absolutely love your jumper, and then normally somebody go, well, I really like your jeans. So we're not comfortable taking that kind of credit for stuff. For me, I love saying, guys, look, you've done amazing today. This is really cool. You've absolutely smashed it this week. You're brilliant at what you do. But I think some people are much happier to put themselves down. And I've no idea why that is.
Well, the biggest challenge I see, because I do a lot of self-observation work with people, and when you actually ask them what they're thinking when they're observing themselves, they're actually not very kind to themselves. And I always remind people of the line, love your neighbour as yourself. Well, if you hate yourself, then you also hate your neighbour. So the clue there is in the end of that piece of scripture. Love yourself first. Well, if you are created, for a purpose, which you are, then you really need to honour that purpose, and you've got a human body to do it with for now. It's sort of a transformational way of thinking. Especially with founders, let's just beat myself harder, and if we look at stats on, I don't know if you've seen the chief exec stats of American industry, something ridiculous like 75% are first generation immigrants.
Wow.
They have suffered hardship and they have beasted themselves to get to where they are. Hardship drives this hard line that people take with themselves. So I see why people do it, but I also see that being kind to yourself is just even more fruitful.
Oh, 100%. I've started running. I ran for a long time and I took 6 months off. And I went for a run last week, start of the new year, get healthy again. Now, can I run as far as I used to? Absolutely not. But at least I'm running again. I'm just not going to beat myself up for what I can't do. I'm going to be really happy with what I can. But this is where the comparison thing comes in again. I can't run a marathon. I'm never going to be the fastest person on a track. I'm not the strongest man in my, I'm none of these things. But actually, I'm exactly where I should be, and I'm exactly the person I need to be. And that I find happiness in. Now, there'll be people looking at me going, I wish I could do what you do. And we always look forward for our kind of confirmation of how good we are. But we never flip it and go, let's look behind us and who else can we help to get to where we are? If we lived in a society where each day we just helped 2 people, but we all did that, we'd live in an amazing society. But there has to be some of us that make that step first. Now, when I started my business, if I'd have gone into working in consulting in a larger corporates, I would have made far more money. But that isn't my mission. My mission is to help early stage founders who I was where they were 6 years ago. And I want to make sure they have a much easier ride than I had. Now, that's a conscious decision for me. I don't judge my success on what I've got sat in my bank account. I judge it on how many founders I've stopped from burning out. And to me, that's a huge win.
I love hearing you articulate that. And if you're listening now, I'd love, as a listener, for you to challenge yourself about, could you articulate your mission, your purpose and your vision clearly, especially if you're a founder? And then can you check your self-talk? Is it encouraging? The way you talk to yourself is the way you talk to everybody. So if you're saying to yourself, you're a lazy so-and-so and you should work harder, then you're actually subconsciously saying that to everybody else and they can feel it. It doesn't serve you. Ian, there's a million questions that I can ask you about, but I want to talk to you about marriage because you and I have both been married, not to each other, but to other people for quite a long time. And I see that this is important to you. And especially the Cornish Diamond Company is obviously part of that. And I love the way you've set up the mission. Can you talk a bit more to me about, you and I can be overt here, actually, we can be honest. A lot of people that I work with and a lot of people that you work with are having marital problems, extramarital affairs, marital breakdowns, and the family unit is being broken down. This is not something we want to see happening. We want to encourage people to stay together, to work together and also be tolerant of each other. It's not easy. You and I talked about that earlier. What do you say to your clients when this comes up in conversation? Because it does all the time.
Yes, so in 2024, my wife and I were going for a walk. This is when things were really bad in my last business. And she said, if this carries on, we're going to have to get divorced. I can't live with you like this. You know, I was a shell of myself. I wasn't happy. I was burnt out. I was depressed, anxious, and it wasn't fair. And what I wasn't doing was sewing into my marriage. And it's something I see loads of founders do. Now, this doesn't exist, but perhaps it should. On that, when a founder raises finance, they actually speak to their partners as well. Because one of the founders I coach a lot, I met him for a coffee over the Christmas period. He was burning himself out again. I'm like, Chris, you can't be doing this. You know, you're constantly getting to the same point. Is it worth me having a conversation with your partner to make sure she tells me the early warning signs when you're starting to push it too hard? Because being a founder, there's quite a lot. This is what we want. You know, it's not what our family wants. Well, founders, we are driven to make a difference. We will work all of the hours. We will sacrifice sports days and birthdays. I actually sacrificed 2 anniversaries. And I did all this because I wanted my business to succeed. But what I didn't realize how much this was affecting my wife. And I see it for all founders. We are head down. We are driving at this. We're going to do it at all costs. And quite often that cost is the marriage. Quite often I speak to founders who've made millions, and I mean millions of pounds, had a successful exit, but all of a sudden their kids are 32 and they haven't seen them. For me, that really, if you have to judge your level of success, what are you chasing? So are you chasing success, which is £60,000 a year, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 2 holidays a year? Is that your success? Or will you only ever be happy when you've got a unicorn status? But what will you lose to get there? And I don't think people stop enough to realize that you can't have one without impacting everything else. You've only got a certain amount of hours. And for me, marriage is vitally important. My wife's been incredible. She supported me all the way through. I certainly wasn't the best husband. I was working too hard. The weekends when I should have been out with her, I just wanted to collapse in front of the telly. But actually, for me, it's seeing those warning signs in the founders far earlier than I did for myself. Because yes, you always look at the grass is always greener. You know, if I just left my wife and met this other individual, life would be amazing. And it's not the case. It's like having a classic car. If you don't service that classic car, at some point it will fail. Marriage needs servicing. It needs date nights. It means romance. You know, it means talking to one another and putting the time into it. And for me, I got it really wrong. But luckily, we made it through the other side, Lindsey, and it's never been stronger. We've been together about 17 years now. And it just feels like we're starting to actually put the time into the marriage to make it work. I certainly don't want to be one of those people who looks back and goes, I could have done more.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being prepared to go there on this conversation, because I agree with you. You have to sew into it. And I think I am just going to reference the book, The 5 Love Languages. I'm going to reference it in the show notes. You've read it, I've read it.
Yeah.
We also get it wrong. So if your partner thinks that your love language is gifts, for example, and they keep buying you stuff and it's not actually your love language, you're going to feel bought. And I'm talking from experience here, my love language is words of affirmation. I really need it. I really crave it all the time. And when I get it, it's like, oh, it's the best thing ever. I married somebody who's very like one of my parents. It's not really their default. Well, I'm not blaming them. It's just a purpose, an education piece. So I would recommend that's a great place for people to start. If you are an intelligent founder, if you're an intelligent husband, or you're an intelligent wife and you're listening to this, can I recommend that you read that book and you go away and actually behave in a way that meets the love language of your spouse? In the same way, Ian, we want to deliver to what our customers want and our and people we're leading. So why wouldn't we listen into what their needs really are?
Exactly that. It's, as you say, love languages. Mine's the same as yours, Lindsay. Positive affirmation. So if I've cut the lawn during a day and my wife doesn't notice, I'm like, come on. And if I've made dinner and I've done a really nice bolognese or a chili, all I just wanted to say is well done. I don't want gifts. I'm not a huge fan of them. You could buy me a brand new Rolex and I'd rather her go in, you've done a really good job there. But we get it wrong. And sometimes, as you said, if you don't understand it, you could do everything for your person, but it doesn't quite feel right for them.
Yeah, it's a quick win. It's a really quick win here. If you get somebody's love language right, this also works with your kids. So it's very easy to notice what their love language is. And when you meet them where they need you, again, we were talking about kids ringing up in the day and that they need that. You're still there. Yes, I'm still here. Do you need anything? No. Or they want to shout at you because they just want to let off some steam. I'm often like, oh, you're really angry. Oh, I'm not taking it personally. That's my job. I'm here to receive that for you and hold that space. Ian, there's a million things we could talk about, but the podcast will go on forever if we do. Is there anything we haven't Well, first of all, I'd love to urge anybody listening to reach out and talk to you as a coach and mentor, because you are absolutely incredible at what you do. If you're an early stage founder, Ian is your man. You've also got a team that you work with, Ian, haven't you? There's a few of us, and you and I have been talking about that together. That can support. What else would you offer, Ian, or what else would you say in terms of reaching out and coming into contact with you for that and the Diamond Company?
Yeah, I think for me, it's okay not to be okay. For me, life is hard. Even when you think you've got everything nailed down, you can have something just around the corner which comes up out of the blue and it just knocks you for six. So for founders, well done. It's amazing to have taken that first step away from a paid job into running your own business. And I really applaud them. This world needs more founders, but it also needs founders to have people like yourself and I, Lindsay, who can actually walk that path with you. When things are dark, you've got somebody to shine the light and show you the way. So I always love having conversation with early stage founders. You go, you know what, I really enjoy what I'm doing, but I'm struggling with this, or things haven't worked out as I should have done, or should I keep going at this? When is enough enough? And I think that's one thing a lot of founders get wrong is they don't have a cutoff line. When would I shut? When would I close? When would I walk away from this? And I think that's just as important as how should I start this? So I'd love to have a conversation with anyone who's having a tough time or thinking about starting their own businesses. Or on the other hand, with the Cornish Diamond Company, if you are looking to get engaged and you want to put some of the magic back in, we would love to have a conversation with you. We're a new company, but we're truly ethical. And we just want to see some romance going back into the engagement market.
That's so nice. And I really urge people to get married because we are best in partnership. It's been fundamental in my life. I'm really blessed to have understood the work. And I also think, Ian, people will often say, I don't know what my purpose is. And I often say, well, what's in your hands? Oh, well, I've got kids and a marriage. Okay, so you're called to be a parent and a spouse. That's a blessing. So that's the purpose. And then whatever else. And I think we often forget that. We forget that we're called into this, or we've been blessed with these relationships, marriages, children.
Yeah. We're not all meant to be CEO of Fortune 500 companies. Otherwise, if everyone was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, no one would actually be doing the work on the ground. And once again, it comes down to that comparison thing. We all watch Disney and we believe that's how marriage looks and parenting looks. But it's just not the case. That if you base your success on other people you've seen, you'll never be happy. And this is why you need trusted friends and family around you, people who can walk beside you and go, no, you're doing a fantastic job. You're amazing. And you inspire me to be a better person. Now, that to me is gold.
Well, until next time, Ian, I think we've probably got 5 other podcasts to do on these subjects. I'd also like to put in the show notes, I'll link to Faith Driven Entrepreneurs, another great community of people, and also open up this conversation to anybody who wants to talk to me or to you. They'll find our websites and our LinkedIn profiles in the show notes. Until next time, thank you very much, Ian. I have enjoyed seeing the gold in you. I hope that everybody listening has also seen the gold in Ian and I and is beginning to think about where the gold is in themselves. What is this thing I've got, my unique gift and talent that I'm going out to the world to serve? So until then, please listen, share and subscribe. And thank you very much to my very special guest today.
Thank you for having me on, Lindsay.